The name of this tutorial file is called Making the Drawing File. So once you have your block puzzle completely assembled, all your pieces are finished, you've assembled your pieces into the block, now we need to communicate exactly what those pieces look like, what the sizes of the pieces and any other information onto a drawing for a manufacturer to create. So to do that, we need to learn about a new file type. So I'm going to close this file. By the way, this window is where the part is. This X closes the part. This X here closes the entire program. So make sure you're only clicking on this little X over here. So you click on the X to close it. If you have not saved it, which I didn't, it's going to ask you if you want to save it. I do. I'm going to say yes. And it's going to save it'll save my assembly of my block puzzle. Now, once this closes, we're going to open a new file type, and we open our file types by coming up to the iPro button. Give it a second here. All right, so we're going to make a new. Right below the iPro button is a new, so we're going to click on new. And this file type is called standard.idw, and IDW stands for Inventor Drawing File. So we've learned about the standard IPT, which is the part file, the standard IAM, the assembly file, and now we're going to learn about the standard IDW, the drawing file. We'll click on that. And when this file opens, it's a piece of paper. It's a virtual piece of paper. And there's a few things we have to know about this piece of paper. You'll notice that it looks like a big piece of paper. And in fact, this particular piece of paper, if we look down here, it tells us the size is a C-size drawing. Now, there are 4 basic sizes. There's an A-size paper, which is basically an 8.5 by 11. That's a single sheet of paper. There's a B-size paper, which is 2 8.5 by 11s put together, which makes an 11 by 17. There's a C-size paper, which are 4 pieces of paper put together. So this is 4 sheets of regular paper. And there is a D-size paper, which is 8 sheets of normal paper. By default, the program brings up a C-size paper. What we're going to do for this particular project is we're going to change the paper size to an A, because the block, all of the 5 pieces will fit onto the paper. We could scale. In other words, we could make each individual part bigger or smaller depending on the size of the paper, but I think in this case it's going to be easier for us to set this paper size to an A size and just bring the parts into a 1-to-1 scale. I'm thinking that is the way to do it. So let's change the paper to an A size paper, and we do that by coming over to the browser bar, and we see here where it says sheet 1. That's the current sheet that's up. We're going to right click on that, and we're going to select edit sheet. So we're going to edit this sheet of paper, and we're going to change it from a C size to an A size. You'll notice that it has an orientation, which is landscape. It also tells you the location of what's called the title block. The title block is where the information for the drawing is, who drew it, the date, the size of the paper, the title of the drawing, etc. We see that it's located in the bottom right, and that's where we want it. So we're going to say OK. And you can see now that the paper looks different because now it's a single sheet, and the title block is huge. And the reason the title block is huge is because it's made for 4 sheets of paper. So we're going to get rid of this title block and put in a smaller title block that's made for an A-size paper. So back over to the browser bar, we see that under sheet 1 we have an ANSI large indicator. We're going to right click that and delete it. And it simply gets rid of the title block. But we need that title block. So where is the title block? Well, it's under Drawing Resources. We're going to select the plus sign to open up the different drawing resources. And here we see title blocks with the plus sign there. And we have 2 options, an ANSI large or an ANSI A. ANSI is a specification standard. It's an acronym, and we'll talk about that in depth a little bit later. We're going to use a regular ANSI A title block, double click it. Hello. Come on, there we go. Double click it and it comes onto the paper, and you can see it's much smaller, which gives us more room now to fit our puzzle pieces on. All right, so we have our paper set up, A size title block, we're ready to go. In order to put the drawings on the paper, there are different ways we can do this, but we are going to do it a very specific way, because in order to put the drawings on the paper, we need to identify the front view of the part. So we're going to go ahead and open up using the iPro button. We're going to select open, and we are going to open up our first assembly. Our first assembly was assembly 1. We're going to open that. Now, this technique that I'm going to show you only works with one part open at a time. So we're going to rotate it around, and we're going to identify the front view. Well, if this is, now the computer thinks this is the front view, because this is the way that the block is orientated. But is that the front view? That's the question. And the answer is no, it's not the front view, because the front view is the longest side. So if I look at, and this button down here is called the Look At button. Look At allows me to select a face of the part, and it will look directly at it. So I'm going to select the Look At button, and then I'm going to select the front view, which is this view right here. That is the front view. You'll notice the block says it's the right view. That's only because of the way that we made the part. In this particular technique, you are telling the computer which view is the front view. We point to the front view, and then we're going to minimize it. This is the minimize button. This was the close. This was the restore down, and this is the minimize. We're going to minimize it, and you'll notice that it's down here as assembly 1 on this bottom tab. There it is. Minimize it down to the tab, and here's our drawing. I want to maximize this drawing to fit in the entire window. There it is. Now, we have our part orientated in the front view. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up here and we're going to put that view onto the paper. There are different views that we can select, but in this particular case we want the base view. It's the initial view of that part. And we're going to select it, and you see it gives us the option for the front view, but look what it does. It puts in the wrong view for the front view. That's why we opened it ourselves, and we're going to select current. And you'll notice that this is the current view. Now on this paper, it looks like the paper is going to be too small, because we have 5 pieces plus, we have 5 separate pieces plus the block. So that's okay. We're going to change the part back to a C drawing, and it gives us some practice. So I'm going to go ahead and put this block right here. This part, this is the front view, and let's see how it brings it in. You've got to be patient sometimes. Okay, so we can see that it brought in the front view of my part, and it's prompting me for other views. Well, we learned when we did the multi-view drawings, we learned that when you have a front view, that you put the other drawings off to the right, which is the side view. So we're going to drag this over to the right. We're going to leave a little bit of a gap, and we're going to click it. We're also going to drag it up from the front view. Remember, the top view is always above the front view. We're going to drag it up about the same distance. We're going to click it, and we're going to want the isometric view. Once we have those three views, actually 4 views, we're going to right click and we're going to create it. Look at that. The computer generated the views from our part. Remember how much work that was with the construction lines and lining things up? Remember we did those. The computer did it 1, 2, 3. Once we drew the solid model, it was able to draw those views for us. Okay, we're going to go back now to part 1. And we're going to close it. Because remember, this technique only works for one part at a time. Now I made a mistake. My mistake was I changed the paper size thinking that the parts would fit. They're not going to. I could scale them down. I could make these parts smaller, but I want to leave them 1-to-1 scale. And I want to scale the entire paper down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my sheet. Here's sheet 1. And I'm going to change the size back to a C. I'm going to edit the size. I'm going to change it back to a C. And watch what happens. Okay, do you see that? The parts are 1-to-1, but because it's a C-size paper, the title block now is much smaller because it's a title block made for an A-size paper. If I leave it like that, I won't be able to read it. So I'm going to come back over here to sheet 1. I'm going to delete the ANSI. And over here on the title block, I'm going to right-click ANSI large. Sorry, double-click ANSI large, and there's my ANSI large title block. Now on these parts here, I can manipulate them and move them around. You'll notice that with the three-dimensional view, the isometric view, I can move it around freely. However, on these views, they're locked in because they are derived from the front view. I'm going to position these so that they are equidistant apart. You want about 1 inch between your views. I'm going to put the isometric view up here. And this is the format that I'm going to use for all my parts. And I'm going to space them equally on the page. I'm going to have 5. I will have all 5 of my parts. And I want an isometric of the actual cube. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to do one more for you. And to give you just another example of how you put the parts in. Before I do that, though, I want you to realize that on the isometric view, I want this to be a shaded view. So I'm going to bring my cursor near the part, not on the part, but near the part until you have that red box around it. I'm going to right-click and I'm going to select Edit View. And I'm going to go back to the View selector and I'm going to select this third option over here, which is Shaded. And when I do that and click OK, it's going to shade that part for me. And when I print it, it'll be an actual shaded part. These will just be line drawings, and that's exactly what I want. Okay, so let's walk through the whole process again on the second part. So first, we open up the part that we want to put on the paper. So we're going to come up to iPro, Open. In this case, we're going to open Assembly 2. Remember, only one at a time. I'm opening Assembly 2. I'm going to look at the front view. Now the part, let's see. The cube says that that's the front view. It's not the front view. Front view is the longest side, the most information. This is the front view. I'm going to look at the front view. Okay, it's now in the front view. I'm going to minimize it, and I'm going to put the base view. I'm going to select the middle option here, and I'm going to, which is just the hidden lines removed. We'll look at that later. I want the current view, not shaded, and I'll click OK, and I'll bring it in. That was not what I wanted. I'm going to delete that and do it again. Yes, delete that view. Try it again. Base view, current. Let me get a preview of that by dragging it over here. Perfect. Okay, now I'll bring it in over here, and I'm going to move this out of the way and put it right where I want it, which is right here. And then it gives you the option. There's my side view, my top view, my isometric view. Right-click Create. Position them the way I want them. Make this a solid view by clicking near the part, right-clicking, Edit View, and changing it to a shaded. And there's my second part. Now, I'm going to stretch these out. I'm actually going to bring them down a little bit, leaving gaps between the views. It looks like I'll be able to get 3 views up here. 1, 2, 3, and then my isometric solid. Okay, I want you to continue with this, and in the next tutorial, we're going to add some dimensions to these and talk about some of the basics of dimensioning.